right, so making a quick video. I think everybody that's kind of a Bible fanatic, or if you just love Bibles, you're always in the search for the one Bible that would meet all your needs. And I've been mainly using the NASB as my main translation. And over the last couple of weeks, with the whole coronavirus and waiting on materials to rebind Bibles, I've had a lot of time to think, compare translations, do a little bit of research in the translations, and I got something in the mail a while back that really led me up to this decision. The other night I was reading. I've been using the NASB, and I really love the NASB. I'll continue to use it and study and everything. But I'm so used to the King James because I was King James only for so long that it just was a little bit clunky for me. I'm sure if somebody's just starting out using the NASB, they wouldn't have no problems with that. The flow would come naturally to them. But since my flow is still King James, it's hard for me to use the NASB in just a normal reading setting. So I would say these are going to be my top two Bibles that I've been using recently. I would say probably of all time, really, and one of them is fairly new. But this would be my all-time favorite NASB. Now, this is done by R.L. Allen. This is the 36 GSM Reader's Edition Silverline. And this is what I was using and will continue to use for reasons. For one, I have a lot of like let's see, only about 14 pages, but pretty full of notes. Most of it's just my eschatology and stuff like that I've been studying a lot of eschatology. But I like the line paper, but I've noticed that I do better. Oh, let me say this. I used to use wide margins, and it was funny because every time I'd buy a wide margin, I would get it, and next thing you know, I just would go back to a Bible that had that wasn't meant for taking notes, and I'd end up taking more notes and something like this and than I would in a wide margin. I'd just underline it, have abbreviated notes, and I would put, as you can see here, page 2C. So that's page 2, note C. And I'd put that in the back here, or I'd put it in a journal. I just realized for me, it's better. I can carry that Bible around. All my notes I store electronically and in physical journals. So if it works really good. Another thing that I'm so used to from being King James only for so long is I'm used to the verse by verse. So that's one thing I liked. I liked the center column reference. I like either center column or outward column references. I really don't like them too much where they're in the bottom corner. I don't like them at the bottom. It just seems like I'm doing so much, trying to navigate so much more to find cross references. And I'm a big fan of cross referencing. I believe that we should interpret scripture with scripture. And I'm big on taking the Bible and using those cross references, especially when it's a good cross reference edition. But it just, when I would read it just to sit down and say, Lord, life application or devotionals, I'm like, Lord, speak to me. Here's your word. That's how you speak to us. It just didn't flow as well as if I was reading my King James Bible. So it was hard for me to get used to it. It's kind of clunky. But I stuck with the NASB probably for the last year and a half. And I've been primarily using this Bible. And I'll tell you what, Allens are just built like tanks, man. I'll tell you what. And especially this, I like this natural goat skin that they use. I like it better than Highland goat skin. Highland goat skin seems a little bit too thin. The grain is beautiful, absolutely. That's why people love it. But I think that the Highland goat skin is not as durable as this natural goat skin that they use. But I was back to subject at hand, and I'm going to show you, what I think is the best Bible in the market right now. Besides this one. If you're going to use the NASB, this is the best Bible. And when they come out, get them quick because they sell out quick. But I sat down, it was a couple days, maybe even close to a week ago, and I took the ESV, which I love, and I took the NASB. I read the whole book of Ephesians in the NAS, and then I read it in the ESV, went back to the NAS, read Ephesians again, and then I read the ESV. What I noticed was when I was reading is the ESV for me was so much like the King James. It just flowed that just in a perfect way. It just really harmonizes with what my brain is used to reading when reading the Bible. So I was like, man, if they just had a verse by verse. And I received something the other day, and I'm going to do, this won't be the review, I'll do a full review on it, but I want to show you what I've really settled on. So I've kind of went from NASB as my primary, now I'm to the ESV. And there's reasons for that too, especially Old Testament reasons, which will be another video. I'll just give you a couple. They really do utilize the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Septuagint, and other texts more than the NASB 95 does. I'm not sure how the 2020 is going to be, but they really, the ESV really utilizes those and brings a lot more clarity, especially in the Old Testament, than the NASB does. Even in their footnotes, I notice they don't have footnotes for certain areas. They should have a footnote for alternative readings from these other manuscripts that we have, and they're just not in here. So I was always, man, if I could have, I think you might have heard me say this before, if I could have the NASB New Testament and then have the ESV Old Testament bound in one Bible, I'd use that. But I was kind of fighting it because I knew when I'd read the NASB, I like the way it works as a study Bible. I like how it capitalizes Old Testament references. I like the footnotes when you get a Bible that has all their footnotes from the Lockman Foundation, the translator's footnotes and stuff. I love all those things. It just was, like I said, it was clunky. But another thing I do want to tell you is when you're using the NASB, it's considered the most literal translation, and it's not because what's in the text. I'm going to let you know that. The reason why they consider it the most literal is the text, but it's also you have to be using the literal footnotes. That when they say it's the most literal, it's not the most literal. In fact, your King James would be more literal than the NASB. I would say the King James is not as clear as the NASB. Like the word eon, which is age, and in here it'll say or the King James would say world. So this is more clear, but this is more literal when you use what's given to you. Which was kind of a bummer when Nelson brung out their NASB 95 and they stripped away a lot of those footnotes. So that it pretty much makes NASB, it's just not what it's supposed to be. So yes, the NASB is more literal than the King James when you use the footnotes. Without the footnotes, the King James is going to be more literal, but this is going to be more precise in the way it words things. So it's going to, I think, do a better job translating the Greek and Hebrew to convey what the Bible's saying. So overall, the NASB is just awesome. I'm not downing it. I'm just letting you know if you want it. The reason why they say it's so literal, it's not the text only, it's also the footnotes that it's in there. And that's something that people don't mention too often. So I decided to go with NASB, and this is the Bible that is now my all-time favorite Bible, and I've not had it that long, but you got to remember I came from a King James background, and I was an extreme King James onlyist, and so I was used to, just certain things about the King James, verse by verse, double column format, just the way it flows. Now this is, of course, ESV, and the English Standard Version is in that tradition of translations. It is a revision, I would say. Overall, it is kind of a revision of the King James. Now, I know it's a revision of the RSV, but that's also, it's in that same line. This reads a lot like the King James, but improves in a lot of areas, corrects a lot of problems that the King James has, and it just does a wonderful job in the Old and New Testament. And so I came across this, which is, I had the box right here somewhere. And some of you guys probably already know what it is, but it's the New Cambridge Line. The first translation they came out with was the ESV Topaz. This is the reference edition in blue goatskin leather, edge-lined. So, and it's, I think it's like see what I want to say it's 10 point font, or 10.5, something like that. It doesn't say here, but it's like the same font size as your turquoise, your King James Version turquoise Cambridge would be. But just look at this, guy. This is amazing. You have the blue under gold. Let me just show you this. Like I said, I'll do maybe a fuller review. But what I like about it is you do get that verse by verse. But when you're reading it, every verse will start off with a capital letter unless it's still in the middle of a sentence. And I'm trying to find one here for you. See if I can find one. So that way, if you're doing it for reading and you're not studying or whatever, you don't lose that flow that you would. You don't lose the flow like you would with the King James Bible. That's sometimes a problem because people come up with some weird doctrines by not looking at the flow of Scripture. But you can see here it's capital I, but since it's going from this sentence here, you see the semicolon, and then it's not capitalized. So you know it's flowing, and then in verse 3 it's still flowing, and then it goes there. So you got a capital letter. But that really helps. If you know that, it really helps. Another thing I really like is these verse numbers are in red letter. Now, it's a little bit different in the New Testament because when you're in the red letter section, and this is done really well. The best red I've seen is from Cambridge. But when you look at it, when it starts off in black, it'll have a red verse number, and then when it starts off with black, it'll have a red verse number. When it starts off in red, it'll have a black verse number. And then that just really helps. Everything just like it pops off the page, really helps you. And then they have all these references done just very, very nicely here. And then sometimes you'll have some room to write. And then you'll have your footnotes at the bottom. But this is like a dream come true for me, really. I mean, just it's not too big of a Bible. Let's see here. It's not too big of a Bible for me anyways. It's nice and thin. It's not too thick. It's not too heavy. It's got the raised hubs. It's goat skin. And boy, I tell you what, Cambridge does a good job in the sense for when their oversight committee or quality control, they seem to be very consistent with their leather covers, whereas other publishers will just take whatever cuts from whatever part of the goat. It seems like Cambridge is very picky and they do a good job being consistent. So I really appreciate that. So that's where I'm at, guys. I am switching from the NASB to the ESV for a lot of reasons, but the main one is that I'm used to that flow that is like the King James. And now that I found one in verse by verse that has a wonderful layout, a huge readable type, and a really good size, compact for me. I'm used to really large Bibles. And with a good concordance, and probably the best maps out there are the Cambridge maps. But overall, that's why I am now, this is just, I haven't even really broke this thing in. It didn't take me long to realize I found what people say the one, and I've never said that, I don't think, about a Bible. I would say I've made comments about the best Bible of all time is the Clarendon wide margin, but that was in the King James Version. And I would say, yeah, that'd be the best for a wide margin. I think I've made that claim. But the best overall Bible for me to date is this ESV Topaz for Cambridge. So I really appreciate it, Cambridge, for all the thought, the overall, not just the construction of the Bible, but what is put into it. And then 2K Denmark doing a wonderful job. This type is just amazing. But yeah, so that's where I'm going. And I have so many ESVs, and Crossway is so, in fact, I got some Bibles coming to review from them, and they've been such a blessing throughout the years. And they are really big on getting a lot of options out there. And I'm like, it looks like the ESV is going to be around for quite a long time. In fact, I've heard people say it. I've heard even scholars mention that, you know, not in a scholarly way, but what we consider scholars say, it looks like the ESV might take the place of the King James, as the King James was to us for the last 400 plus years. It looks like the ESV might take that spot. And I'm really coming to believe that. I think people are really seeing the good that the ESV brings to the table. So I went a little bit long, but I just wanted you guys to know what's going on. And yeah, so this is a beautiful Bible. I'll do a more of a review after I break it in, so you can see how it lays flat, what it's like with a little bit of views, and kind of go everything a little bit better. But until next time, guys, good day and God bless.